Welcome to the Morning Edition Extra. I'm Adelmi Ruiz, coming to you from Alaska's News Sources Digital Desk. Thank you so much for starting off your Friday morning with us. Our top story: at the state capitol, Governor Dunleavy's tax proposals could affect every Alaskan and every tourist. The governor's sales tax proposal would add a 2% winter tax and a 4% summer tax to most purchases across the state, including groceries, diapers, and gas, but it's a plan not everyone supports. Lawmakers are now struggling with what that means for families already facing high prices.
When rural Alaskans face much higher costs.
Okay, apologies for that delay in our audio. I'm going to start this video over.
The governor would like to not have a tax as well, but that's not the situation we're in. We have a fiscal crisis that needs to be resolved.
How is a statewide sales tax meant to be equal when rural Alaskans face much higher costs for the same basic necessities, especially after a disaster?
The legislature took a deeper look at the proposed new tax law, hearing from lawmakers, local leaders, and members of the public who oppose the sales tax and fear the impact might have on Alaskans. The proposal calls for a 2% winter, 4% summer tax on most purchases, including groceries and gas. Rural lawmakers say their constituents would be hit hardest paying the tax on goods that already cost 2 to 4 times more. Communities with existing local taxes could see combined rates hit as high as 13%. Acting Revenue Commissioner Janelle Earls defending the plan to the House Finance Committee, while representatives were skeptical. Later in the evening, the Senate Finance Committee heard from the public, who generally were not in favor of the bill. Of 31 people who spoke, only one was in favor of a sales tax. The rest either opposed or felt it would put an undue burden on their communities, though many favored an increased corporate sales tax or a statewide income tax.
The number one rule of any tax since before Fred Flintstone is that you always tax the other guy.
It's time to tax the rich. I'm also going to say you need to start looking into an income tax.
Ultimately, if the bill passes, it would take effect a year later and sunset in 2034. The next time the Finance Committee will take up the sales tax again will be next Thursday, February 12th. And a moment for accountability in an Anchorage courtroom. A teenager admitted his role in a deadly drunk driving crash that cut short the life of another Service High School student. Stephen Shearer was just 17 when he got behind the wheel, and now he's facing the consequences of that one night. Cassandra Mansell tells us what happened in court.
18-year-old Stephen Shearer stood before a judge Thursday afternoon, his family and the victim's family in the gallery. The atmosphere in the room was heavy. Charged as an adult for crimes he committed when he was 17, he was asked to plea on 2 counts.
What is your plea? Guilty.
Back on October 14th, 2024, the Rabbit Creek neighborhood became the scene of a tragedy. According to court documents, Shearer was driving drunk when his pickup truck rolled over. 3 teens were inside. One of them, a 17-year-old Service High student, was pinned under the truck and died at the scene.
If the court lifts the house arrest component, you position himself to earn what I think he's earned, which is the right to continue to prove himself and to demonstrate that he's committed to change. And he's really tried to do everything in his power to demonstrate that today.
Shearer was originally facing a manslaughter charge. That has been dismissed. He pleaded guilty to criminally negligent homicide and driving under the influence. His sentencing is scheduled for July 10th. Cassandra Mansell, Alaska's news source.
Fairbanks leaders are moving quickly to address a dangerous crossing near Fort Wainwright. The focus is Trainer Gate Road and F Street, where parents and the mayor have raised safety concerns for years. Now the city is pushing short-term fixes, including brighter lighting and speed tables to slow drivers and protect students walking to Tanana Middle and Ladd Elementary.
It's like a hump in the road, but it's designed for like a higher speed road where if you're going over 30 miles an hour, it will knock the coffee off the dashboard, but it's not made like a bump in a parking lot. It's something that's safe for motorcycles and vehicles in the wintertime, and it can be maintained with plows.
Any permanent upgrades still require approval from the Fairbanks City Council. And Alaska is very familiar with extreme temperatures. One woman in Port Alsworth spent the entire year of 2025 turning weather into art, capturing very high and low temperature in yarn and color. Cassandra Mansell reports how the magic of a hook and some yarn can truly paint a picture.
This crochet flower blanket tells a story.
I stumbled across something end of 2024. People were talking about the end of their temperature blankets. I'm like, what the heck is this?
The story of a remote village.
But it was so cool at the end of the year just to see all these beautiful blankets.
A snapshot of an entire year, all in one piece of art.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do that.
Selena Alsworth shares her everyday life online, living in Port Alsworth, Alaska. Last year, she became inspired to crochet her own temperature blanket for the entire year of 2025.
It's just people following the temperatures, whether that's like the average or the highs or the lows of that year or like previous years that like mean something to them, and making a blanket out of it.
The creator can decide what colors are assigned to different temperature ranges and choose its pattern.
We start with 2 rows every single month. One is a high row and one is the lows. And there's just a flower for every one. Each color is a 10-degree range. So for example, this like peach color is the 30s. So it can be between 30 and 39 degrees. The mustard is the 20s, and so on.
Selena's blanket reveals something surprising about Alaska's weather patterns.
It was a very odd, warm winter and year for us.
She says she grew up often experiencing temperatures as low as 40 below, but 2025 told a different story.
The coldest it got, I had to go back and look on my records, negative 14 degrees last January. Whereas this January, we went all the way to negative 40.
And the warmer colors dominate the fabric.
40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. These purple ones are the 70s, and we only hit those like less than a handful of times.
She's already started working on 2026.
And it's actually a pattern that I bought off of Etsy. It's definitely going to be a lot bigger than my 2025 blanket, that's for sure.
A year in color and yarn. The story of her home. Cassandra Mansell, Alaska's news source.
And we are going to be taking a very short break, so stick with us. When we come back, we're going to be hearing from John Thompson and Emma Wolfers as they discuss what is going on in Washington that you need to know about. We're going to be talking about drug costs and what lawmakers are doing to lower those drug costs, and how the president has initiated something with the goal of lowering some of those prices for prescription drugs. And a man was charged after his roommate was found deceased. So we'll get to those stories when we get back, so stick with us. Welcome back in, and thank you so much for... Okay, welcome back in. I apologize for that. I just realized that the timer was still going and I started a little bit prematurely, but now we are back, and thank you so much for sticking with us. Now we have our own John Thompson, who's going to be speaking with our Washington correspondent Emma Wolfhurst on what is going on in Washington that you need to know and what will impact you.
This crochet...
Well, in his continued push to lower prescription drug prices, President Donald Trump is launching his Trump RX website. Alaska's news source Washington correspondent Emma Wolfhurst joining us now from D.C. Emma, what are the details of TrumpRx.gov?
John, the president announced this Thursday, and he was joined by Dr. Oz, Medicare and Medicaid Services Administrator, as well as HHS Secretary RFK Jr. The president says this website will offer discounted prescription prices through special agreements his administration has made with 16 drug companies, including really big names like Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and Eli Lilly. The new government portal is set up sort of as a facilitator. So as you scroll through the website and look at different medications, it points customers to drug makers' direct-to-consumer websites to make their purchases, or provides a downloadable coupon to be used at pharmacies. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said this was, quote, a historic announcement that will impact millions of Americans, end quote. The administration launched the website Thursday with 40 medications, and they say they plan to introduce more in the coming months.
Well, Democrats on Capitol Hill are demanding reform for immigration and customs enforcement, ICE, ahead of another funding showdown next week. What are the Democrats asking for, Emma?
John, Democrats in the Senate and House laid out 10 demands Thursday, including big ones they've been talking about since the start of this funding debate, including banning face masks, mandating judicial warrants for entering private property, and requiring agents wear body cameras. Democrats are threatening to block Department of Homeland Security funding next Friday if they don't see what they call dramatic changes and real accountability for ICE. However, most of these reforms are just non-starters for Republicans. And now House GOP lawmakers are demanding some of their own priorities be included next week in the DHS spending bill, like restrictions on sanctuary cities. As we've been talking about, the deadline is next Friday, February 13th. If lawmakers don't have a deal worked out in a week, it's not just ICE that runs out of money. DHS also includes TSA agents, FEMA, and the Coast Guard. There is an idea floating around Capitol Hill of potentially passing what's called a continuing resolution, a CR, for just TSA, FEMA, and Coast Guard. ICE has its funding stream from the Trump tax bill previously passed, so it would actually continue to operate even if funding lapsed next Friday. Senate Majority Leader John Thune also said he's thinking about proposing another stopgap funding bill for DHS next week to give lawmakers more time to negotiate. That bill could potentially fund DHS for the rest of the year.
Thank you, Emma. And finally, U.S. and Iranian officials are set to meet. What can we expect from that meeting?
Yeah, John, these nuclear talks between Iran and the United States are taking place in Oman today. They were originally going to be held in Turkey. It's not just the location that has changed. The topics have also been adjusted. Discussions were supposed to be centered on issues like Iran's ballistic missile program and other concerns. But Wednesday, a regional official in Iran said the country was seeking a different type of meeting focused exclusively on the issue of Iran's nuclear program. Now, tensions have been high, and President Trump really wasn't toning it down at all. He issued Iran's supreme leader a warning ahead of today's talks. He said in an interview with NBC News, quote, "I would say he should be very worried," end quote.
Alaska's news source, Washington correspondent Emma Woolforce joining us from D.C. Thank you very much, Emma.
Thank you.
With affordability a top issue of 2026, lawmakers in both chambers are working to tackle one of the root causes of the cost crisis, the high price of prescription drugs. Washington correspondent Katrin Asaf has more on the different tactics being taken to protect patients and hold those upping prices accountable.
I'm really, really happy today, but I want to say again, this is just the beginning.
A cause for celebration and a launching point for reform. When President Trump Tuesday signed the 2026 appropriations package into law, the stroke of his pen did more than just fund the government. It launched a full-scale attack on the business practices of PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers who are key in determining drug prices.
What they have done is to narrow the options and increase the cost.
Through acting as middlemen between insurers and patients, PBMs have long incentivized higher prices, with their income linked to the cost of prescription drugs. But a rule added to the appropriations package would sever that tie, promising to lower the high cost and expand transparency and accessibility.
It was a win for health care. This was big.
Wednesday morning, a bicameral group of Republicans celebrated the progress made, but they weren't the only ones. Across the aisle, Democrats are also tackling how much you pay for medication, but saying it's going to take a broader look at conditions that lead to price hikes in order to find a cure.
When Big Pharma gets richer off the backs of a grandmother struggling to pay for cancer medication, that system is broken.
Even though PBM reform was a bipartisan issue, the Blue Party wants to take it further. In a letter sent to colleagues, senators outlined an effort to lower drug prices by tackling the crisis from two fronts, changing how much manufacturers charge, then what patients actually pay at the till.
Anything that works, we're ready to do it.
Two tactics, one shared goal, and a fight both parties say is far from over.
And what I've said in the effort to drive the PBM reform is this is just the beginning.
In Washington, I'm Katrin Asaf.
And President Trump, looking to cut healthcare costs, which is a central concern among voters, has now launched Trump RX in what is being called an effort to slash prescription drug prices. Democrats who want to own the issue of healthcare affordability are saying the president's move won't be enough. All as lawmakers struggle to resolve another funding fight, Alice Barr has the latest from Washington.
Under pressure to address soaring healthcare costs, President Trump launching a new discount drug platform, TrumpRx.gov.
People are going to save a lot of money and be healthy.
The website, announced in the fall, is now live, offering coupons for discounted prices on so far 43 brand name medications if patients pay cash instead of using insurance, though the site notes to check insurance copays first, which may be lower. The platform's price cuts come through agreements the White House struck with at least 16 drug makers to avoid tariffs. They allow for most favored nation pricing compared to other wealthy countries.
We will pay equal to whatever the lowest price anywhere in the world.
Given that more than 80% of Americans have prescription drug insurance coverage, according to the Department of Health and Human Services, critics argue a cash approach may have limited impact. Democrats still pushing for extending the Affordable Care Act subsidies that expired at the start of the year, sending premiums soaring for millions, looking to make the case they're the ones
pushing to fix our broken healthcare system.
Healthcare costs are a central issue for Americans heading into this year's midterm elections that Democrats are working to draw attention back to amid a new funding fight over the Department of Homeland Security and immigration enforcement reforms.
They're defending using tax dollars to create chaos in our cities instead of using those dollars to reduce costs of health care.
A political lightning rod as Americans look for relief. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Border czar Tom Homan says 700 ICE and Customs and Border Patrol agents are leaving Minnesota. The announcement comes after a month of violent, high-profile clashes between law enforcement and protesters. Reporter Molly Martinez says the fight is far from over for lawmakers.
Border czar Tom Homan says the reason for the ICE exodus in Minneapolis is due to increased cooperation from local law enforcement. It's the latest concession in a thawing stance by the Trump administration. Earlier this week, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem ordered all agents to wear body cameras effective immediately. For Democrats, it's still not enough.
Law enforcement cannot be lawless.
Leaders met Wednesday to once again outline their demands.
None of these roving patrols. You can't just stop anybody on the street. You can't just pick them up and not even tell them why they're picked up, put them in some dark place, no access to a lawyer or a phone or anything else.
They're also asking agents show their faces and that judicial warrants be presented before arrests. When Gray television journalist Leah Vredenbrett asked Speaker Mike Johnson about it, he had this to say.
Imagine if we had to go through the process of getting a judicial warrant, an additional warrant, to go and apprehend people who we know are here illegally. How much time would that take? We don't have enough judges. We don't have enough time.
Leader Hakeem Jeffries had this response.
The Fourth Amendment is not an inconvenience. It is a requirement embedded in our Constitution.
The ICE reform debate will continue for the next 2 weeks. Lawmakers have until February 13th to come up with a solution. That's the funding deadline for the Department of Homeland Security. In Washington, I'm Molly Martinez.
New terrorism charges have been filed against the man accused in a deadly Israeli embassy shooting. It happened last May when 2 embassy staffers were gunned down in D.C. Washington correspondent Stephen Goyne has those details.
The Department of Justice now escalating this case, adding new charges that could guarantee the suspect spend the rest of his life in prison. This week, federal prosecutors unsealing a 13-count indictment against 31-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago, adding 4 counts of terrorism while armed. 2 of the charges connected to the murders he's accused of carrying out, and 2 more related to his alleged intent to kill others. Rodriguez accused of fatally shooting 2 Israeli embassy employees outside the Capital Jewish Museum in May 2025. Investigators say the victims, 30-year-old Yaron Liskinsky and 26-year-old Sarah Milgram, were leaving an event when Rodriguez approached them, allegedly firing 20 rounds and shouting "Free Palestine." Authorities also allege that Rodriguez wrote and published a manifesto trying to justify the attack. At the time, U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C., Janine Pirro, saying this:
"It is the kind of case that we will vigorously pursue. Anti-Semitism will not be tolerated, especially in the nation's capital."
Now, in a statement, Pirro writing, quote, "These additional terrorism-related charges carry a mandatory life sentence under D.C. code, while also reflecting the reality that this act was in fact an act of terror." And Rodriguez was already facing multiple local and federal charges, many of them carrying the possibility of the death penalty. In Washington, I'm Stephen Goen.
And the body of a Missouri woman was found decomposing in her apartment. Now her roommate is charged with abandonment of a corpse after police say the body was left in the unit for weeks. Holden Kerwicki has the story.
As she sits inside her North County home, Ashley Barrett can't help but think about her sister, LaWanda McGee.
She had just graduated from nursing school, so we were excited to see what she was preparing us for.
Barrett says she and her sister shared an unbreakable bond.
We've buried pretty much everybody, that we grew up with, all our, parents, mom, dads, they're all gone. So it was just us two, so we were close.
Though the two hadn't talked since early December, Barrett admits it wasn't until other relatives voiced their concerns about the silence that alarms started going off in her mind.
I started calling the hospitals, every hospital in St. Louis just to figure out, hey, was she in the hospital? And then, I started calling other places just to see if maybe she was in other places. And then, I'm thinking to myself, well, she wouldn't be dead because I would have gotten a phone call.
According to St. Louis County Police, Barrett's worst fears were confirmed January 21st when LaWanda was found dead inside her home.
We're guessing she died on or around December 15th.
LaWanda's roommate, 49-year-old Terrence Smith, now faces charges of abandonment of a corpse for letting her body decompose for weeks.
He stayed with her for 38 days and just, walked past her every day. Covered her with blankets, tried to air the place out, so no one could smell it.
Barrett says her family is now waiting for toxicology results to determine her sister's cause of death, but regardless of what they find,
she doesn't deserve that.
Terrence was charged on February 2nd. His bond was set at $100,000. And authorities in Arizona gave an update Thursday in the search for Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Today's Show co-host Savannah Guthrie, who hasn't been seen or heard from in 5 days. The news conference comes the day after Savannah Guthrie and her brother and sister posted an emotional video pleading for their mother's safe return. Andres Gutierrez has the latest from Tucson.
The Pima County Sheriff's Department said Thursday they believe Savannah Guthrie's mother is still out there as they continue to investigate her disappearance.
We have not identified a suspect or a person of interest in this case.
Authorities shared a timeline showing the window when they believe 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie was abducted from her home in Tucson after she was dropped off Saturday night.
The blood on the porch, that was one we did. It came back to Nancy.
We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen.
In an emotional video released Wednesday, the Today Show co-host and her siblings pleaded directly with whoever may be holding their mother and acknowledged the reported ransom letter.
We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her.
The FBI says there has been no response so far from the video the children put out.
There has been no proof of life, and there was no other demands within that letter. So they're still waiting for communication.
Savannah is very smart. She's going to do what she needs to do to get her mother back.
Savannah Guthrie's friend Sally Shamrell helped organize last night's vigil.
I just want that very, very, very precious woman back in her children's arms.
The FBI announced a $50,000 reward for information leading to Nancy Guthrie's recovery and an arrest in the case. Andres Gutierrez, CBS News, Tucson, Arizona.
The FBI says the ransom note sent to the media contained details including 2 deadlines. The agency said it is investigating the note and any action taken regarding a ransom is decided by the family. And now we're going to be right back after a short break. When we come back, we're going to be having a Watching Your Wallet story, which we all know and love. We're going to be talking about tax changes, and we're going to be talking about Winter Olympic security. So stick with us. Welcome back in, and thank you so much for sticking with us for the Morning Edition Extra this Friday morning. Our next story, if you're planning to start your taxes, there are a few changes this year that you need to know about. And this Watching Your Wallet consumer investigator Rachel DePompa shares what those are.
If you bought a new car in 2025, listen up. A new federal law will allow some borrowers to deduct the interest they paid on their auto loans if it meets certain criteria. Jerry Dale, the vice president of financial education at Virginia Credit Union, says borrowers must provide the vehicle identification number when filing, and that this is available even if you don't itemize.
Some of the criteria is income, making, if you're a single filer, less than 100. If you are jointly filing, less than $200,000. The car also needs to be assembled in America. And they're also, keep in mind, it's the interest, not the entire payment of that car.
Dale also says it's capped at $10,000. Probably most of us are not paying $10,000 in interest on a car loan, but she says every little bit helps if you qualify for this deduction.
Student loan interest got unpaused in 2025. So if you did have some interest on your student loan for that year, look in to see if that you meet the criteria for that being a tax deduction.
You can go to studentaid.gov at any time to learn more about this and find out if you qualify. And remember, many community organizations and credit unions offer free or low-cost tax help. And as always, if you file early, it protects you from identity theft. With this Watching Your Wallet, I'm Rachel DePompa.
Red is the color of the month, and not just because of St. Valentine's Day. Our Jennifer Summers recently sat down with Dr. Linda Ireland, a cardiologist at Alaska Heart and Vascular Institute, to talk about heart health and how to prevent heart issues.
If you
And 1 second while I pull up the proper video. Okay, I have the proper video. So once again, our Jennifer Summers recently sat down with Dr. Linda Ireland, a cardiologist at Alaska Heart and Vascular Institute, to talk about heart health and how to prevent heart issues.
What are key things that we do that are wrong?
Well, I think I don't think it's really doing wrong. I think it's just not being aware. And I think the more we can make ourselves aware of these risks, the better. And it's the standard. I think there's things that are modifiable and there's non-modifiable risks. I think knowing your family history is really important. Like, we can't change that. That's a baseline risk factor that you're going to have, and we can't do anything about it. But then the silent things that you don't know if you don't get screened for is high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol. All of those things are things that are happening that doesn't necessarily cause symptoms a lot of the times, that you need to get screened for those. Smoking, of course, as everybody knows, or everybody should know, smoking is terrible. And then just the regular physical exercise, what we like to say of 30 minutes a day of aerobic activity, is important. So those are a lot of the risks that we talk about. But it's just kind of knowing where you are. And there's risk calculators that are out there that you can put in your numbers, and you can see where you're at, to see where you're at in your numbers, where that you should go and where you should pay more attention to.
Another lifestyle factor is sleep, which surprised me. I was like, well, I can't help my sleep really. How does that factor into your heart?
Yeah, so sleep is a big deal because the recommendations are for 7 to 8 hours of sleep. It really affects your cortisol and your circadian rhythms, and it just increases inflammation and everything that goes along with it. So sleep habits are a really important thing to get into check. And women often struggle with that too when they get into the postmenopausal years with hot flashes and all that other stuff. So that's why it's just really important to really understand the different life cycle parts. Especially, I'm pretty passionate about women this month because it's a pretty bright light that American Heart Association shines on us. And I like to say that there's two big stressors in women's lives that they don't sometimes often recognize. Pregnancy is one of them. So when you're pregnant, that's a life stressor. That's a stress test for the heart, right? And when you are pregnant, there's a couple things that happen during pregnancy that people should be aware of if they have gestational diabetes or hypertension. And that carries a lifelong cardiovascular risk, not just when you're pregnant. And then the natural hormonal shifts that happen when you're in your perimenopausal and menopausal years, when you lose your estrogen and progesterone, cardiometabolic changes happen while that is happening. So the cardioprotective effects of that go away. And then you need to really check your lipid panel again, your blood pressure again, because all of those things change once you go into your postmenopausal years. So those are things that people just aren't aware of a lot of times, and we don't really get to shine a light on it and on such a great stage that the American Heart Association has given us in February.
To find out your risk factors, you can head over to the American Heart Association's website. And Italy's Interforce police teams tightened security controls in Milan ahead of the opening ceremony of the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics, relying on a network of joint police operations centers to set up to manage security for the event. And the main joint police operations centers in Milan, along with centers in Bolzano, Trento, Venice, Verona, Belluno, Sondrio, and Varese, is responsible for monitoring, management, and information sharing among forces involved in securing the games. The Milan Center serves as one of the main security nerve centers overseeing the public order and security apparatus for the 2026 Winter Olympics, the most geographically dispersed winter games in history. The main competition sites are Milan and Cortina d'Ampezzo, the winter resort in the Dolomites, more than 250 miles away by road. Security has drawn controversy after Italian authorities confirmed that agents from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement would be present in Italy during the games. Officials clarified on Wednesday that ICE agents would have only an advisory role and would not operate on Italian territory. And we are going to take another very short break. Stick with us though, because when we come back, we're going to be talking more about your health and what you can do to stay as healthy as you possibly can. Even though, as we just heard from a doctor about your heart health, we're going to be talking about stroke drugs and AI medical training and how that looks like and how that can impact the results of that training. So stick with us. You're going to want to hear those stories. Welcome back in, and thank you so much for sticking with us for the Morning Edition Extra this Friday morning. Nearly 800,000 people a year have a stroke in the United States, and nearly 1 in 4 happen in patients who have had a previous stroke, and that's according to the CDC. But today, new data was released on, on Thursday, new data was released on the study of a new investigational drug, which could help prevent some strokes from happening again without the side effects of traditional therapies. In today's Health Minute, Mandy Gaither talks to one of the researchers about how this new medicine is different and why he says this could be a, quote, game changer for some stroke survivors.
In the U.S., someone has a stroke every 40 seconds, and about 1 in 4 survivors have another stroke within 5 years. Part of traditional post-stroke treatment includes blood-thinning medications to help lower risk of another event, but it can come at a cost.
All blood thinners in some way raise the concern about an increased risk of bleeding.
Dr. Andrew Russman with Cleveland Clinic says post-stroke treatment options haven't changed much in decades, but he's one of the investigators studying the safety and efficacy of a new class of oral medications called Factor XIa inhibitors.
They work by preventing the pathologic or bad clots that occur in the body, but they don't seem to interfere with the good kind of clotting that's important for the normal healing process.
Researchers say a national clinical trial of a drug in this new class found evidence it reduces risk of recurrent stroke when added to standard therapies without increasing the risk of major bleeding.
It's a game changer in the care of acute stroke patients, and that's something that gives us hope that we can prevent stroke in a large population of patients and add on to existing therapies.
The manufacturer, Bayer, says the medicine has received fast-track designation from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
I think there is some anticipation that if this medication goes through this thoughtful review process, we would hope to see the drug available around this time next year.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
A study released in November says this drug shows promise in reduced bleeding, but it is less effective for strokes caused by atrial fibrillation, which are generally more severe. The FDA says Fast Track is aimed at speeding up the review process of certain drugs that treat serious conditions, and a medication is often designated on this track because it may fill an unmet medical need and get important new drugs to patients earlier. And medical schools are increasingly turning to artificial intelligence to train future doctors. Kamal Afzali shows us one university that's using avatars to teach herbal remedies and mannequins that simulate patients in an emergency room.
I am Dr. Layla, a specialist in medicinal plants.
These students are learning about traditional medicine, but the way they're learning is anything but traditional.
Can you tell me again what are the consequences? Dizziness, nausea. There are several types with Ceylon cinnamon.
Dr. Layla is one of a number of AI-powered systems developed in-house at Dubai Medical University.
Large herb commonly used in traditional medicine and cooking. Its seeds and leaves are both utilized.
Can I ask you about vinegar?
The knowledge used to train Dr. Layla comes from the university's own textbooks, substituting both those textbooks and the need for a teacher.
So the students enjoy the fact that rather than going to the textbook or spending hours doing their research, they can come and consult Dr. Layla, and Dr. Layla's knowledge is all controlled and verified here in the university.
This school's push to harness AI extends from its greenhouse to its emergency room, where the stakes are high.
My head is pounding and throbbing.
He's unconscious. Andrew, we're gonna take you to get an x-ray done now.
Now we're being put in a real-life scenario. We have to act as real-life doctors. We need to know exactly what we're doing without making a single mistake in front of the patient.
Andrew, like all AI systems, can make mistakes.
There are risks of hallucination, as all artificial intelligence systems have, but we are more controlling it in this sense.
Any shortcomings of AI hasn't slowed its adoption at this university.
Some studies suggest it may help manage blood sugar levels.
For now, it's transforming the student experience. Kamal Afzali, CBS News, London.
Everyone wants to know the secret to aging gracefully, right? Well, scientists have been studying a group of special seniors called super agers who are defying time. In this Aging Untold Extra, Tisha Powell shares the story of a woman for whom age is just a number.
Her name? Thayer Wine, a longtime former food critic at the Tennessean and published cookbook author who studied ballet at the Sorbonne in France, then picked up painting post-retirement. Impressive, sure, but what has fellow dance mates particularly jazzed? is Thayer's age.
I just turned 83.
Yes, 83 and still doing push-ups.
Instead of thinking about being 60, I'm thinking about 105.
Is Thayer a super-ager? Aging Untold expert and coach Catherine Ambrose says Thayer certainly hits all the marks.
Superagers tend to be people that are just aging exceptionally well, that they're vibrant, future-focused, they're excited about life, they're positive, they're adaptable, and maybe aging about aging like 15 years younger than average.
They do things they like and find challenging.
I think that's what a lot of superagers have in common, that they have something that really powers them every day, something they want to accomplish, something they want to do for others, something they want to learn. From babies on, you're always learning and trying new things. When we stop learning, we stop growing and we start disconnecting from life. So if you really want to age well, you'll keep learning.
Paying attention to her body and keeping a routine, Thayer says, are working for her, inspiring us superagers in training along the way.
How do you feel?
Oh, I feel great.
Aging Untold, a brand new talk show, premieres on KTUU on March 2nd at 4:30 p.m. So that's March 2nd at 4:30 p.m. on KTUU. And we are going to be taking our final short break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about, you'll be hearing the name Liam and what his big climb is. We'll be talking about Bitcoin in price slumps, and Starbucks is giving away free coffees, which might interest a couple of you guys. I know I'm interested in that free coffee. And we'll be talking a little bit about history as well. So stick with us. We'll have all of that and more for you. Welcome back in, and thank you so much for sticking with us this Friday morning. Our next story is about the life of an 11-year-old cancer survivor. He was named Blood Cancer United's Big Climb Wisconsin hero this year. You might have heard of him back in 2019. The fundraiser is a stair climb that will help raise money for blood cancer research. Cambrian Kelly has more on his journey in remission.
I'm running. Wait, do I have the... I don't know who has the ball.
Scoring a touchdown on a video game
Am I the quarterback? No.
is not even close to the battle Liam Sanborn faces.
Okay, you ready?
You ready to go by? WMTV first introduced you to Liam and his mom Ashley in 2019 when he was diagnosed with leukemia. Not too long after treatments,
Hi, buddy.
he was diagnosed with the disease multiple more times.
I'm right here.
7 years later,
Behind the camera.
he was named Blood Cancer United's Big Climb Wisconsin hero. The organization is teaming up with NFL Hall of Famer and former Badgers offensive lineman Joe Thomas.
My son is 9, Liam's 11, and I just knew that they were going to hit it off right away.
Thomas, who now runs Hall of Fame Beef, invited the Sanborns to his Muscadet Ranch to hang out ahead of the summer fundraiser.
Do you have any ketchup?
What a great kid. Like, the kid just has a zest for life.
Thomas spent time in the 11-year-old's world.
Well, I try to act like all happy and stuff, and like try to act like I have a good life. But in the past, it was not so great.
Liam remembers bits and pieces of his life in the hospital.
I don't know the full story, but my mom does.
I named him Liam, and Liam means warrior. And so I think I named him appropriately. I think that I was dealt a hand that was quite difficult, but you're not dealt a hand you can't handle.
Pretty safe.
Ashley tries to give her son a normal life.
So we do a lot of traveling, and he does a lot of IVs, a lot of infusions. He's still getting them. He's doing fantastic.
Every day is a climb for Liam.
We got you, brah.
But his family's willing to take on that climb like warriors.
He is doing great at keeping me on my toes.
Hi.
And inspiring me to keep doing more. So I think that he's my blessing.
Please be quiet.
The price of Bitcoin is in a sharp slump. The New York Times reports that it's raising concerns of a crypto winter. The low Friday morning is almost half the price at Bitcoin's peak. It's also below the cost from when President Donald Trump was elected in 2024. He's a powerful supporter of cryptocurrency who's been promising to boost it. Ether and Solana also report declines this week, and the Gemini exchange says it's laying off staff. Some experts say crypto trades like tech stocks and those who have been turning down of late. And this year, on Monday, February 9th, a Starbucks Rewards member can get a free tall brewed hot or iced coffee, such as the new 1971 roast, with the purchase of any qualifying beverage. A free coffee added to your coffee run is the perfect chance to connect with a friend or surprise someone who needs a little pick-me-up. To make your coffee run extra special, size tall, grande, and venti hot beverage orders will be served in a special edition paper cup wrapped in Starbucks' iconic green and original logo, designed to celebrate this company's heritage in coffee and craft, and available at participating coffee houses in the U.S. for a limited time through February while supplies last. And Pizza Hut plans to close 250 locations, which could be roughly 3% of its U.S. footprint. Yum Brands, which also owns Taco Bell and KFC, announced the news in Wednesday's earnings call. The company previously announced in November it had launched a formal review of strategic options for Pizza Hut, including a possible sale. No further additional information was released Wednesday, other than that Yum expects the review to be completed this year. A specific list of locations that were closing wasn't released. And talk about perfect timing. A family in Ohio adopted a dog that had been waiting for a home for 2 years. Just 48 hours later, he saved her new family's lives. Here's Brittany Harry with the story.
On January 28th, Deborah Watkins and her grandson Logan came to Paws of Dearborn County wanting to adopt an American Staffordshire Terrier.
Don't judge a dog by the breed so quickly. They're all individuals like we are all individuals. You can't cast a broad blanket on these dogs and think it's correct.
Layla Lou was Cindy Lou at the time. The Watkins say she stood out because of her personality. Layla had been at the shelter for 2 years.
She not only saved our home, but she saved our home from boredom. She is always doing something funny. She loves laying on people, licking, kissing. She's just really, really happy we took her home.
She has just been a joy and a wonderful dog.
Wait up. Good girl.
On Layla's second night in her new home, Deborah says she woke up to Layla trying to get her attention.
Layla came in my room and was very aggressively trying to wake me up. When I got up, I discovered that the house was filling up with smoke.
Deborah says the smoke was because of this log that was placed in the family's wood-burning fireplace. It didn't quite fit, Deborah says, so it was taken out and left on a pile of logs.
She prevented definitely what could have been a fire where we would have needed fire department response and probably smoke inhalation. The smoke was pretty thick upstairs in the house as smoke rises.
Deborah says she's unsure what would have happened that night if Layla hadn't woken her up. What she does know is that Layla has certainly found her forever home.
We're used to seeing the aurora borealis from the ground, but what does it look like from space? NASA is sharing this stellar time-lapse view from auroras from the International Space Station. You can see green aurora ribbons hugging Earth along with the thin orange glow of our atmosphere tracing the planet's edge. And NASA says auroras are the result of charged particles from the sun colliding with gases in Earth's atmosphere guided by Earth's magnetic field. Oxygen contributes green and red light to auroras. Nitrogen produces blues and purples. And when you look at homes, you usually notice the landscaping. But for one neighborhood in Chicago, everyone is talking about the garages. As you can see, the garage doors all have murals painted on them. And don't call it graffiti. The builder came up with the idea as the homes were being built. Some of the residents were able to choose their own unique design. The art draws visitors to the alley, with one resident calling it the most Instagrammable alley in the city. Well, that's a very creative way to decorate your home. I would love to have a little piece of artwork on a garage. It is a very Instagrammable alley in the city, I would say. And taking a look back at notable events that occurred on this day in history, and today marks 74 years since Queen Elizabeth II was crowned in the United Kingdom. She's the longest reigning monarch in British history. Her time on the throne spanned from 1952, when she was 25 years old, until her death at age 96 in 2002. Her successor was, of course, her son, King Charles III. And before we wrap up for this morning edition extra this beautiful Friday morning, let's talk a little bit about what's going on, what's happening. So the Anchorage Museum's First Friday explores the galleries and creates arts. Visit the planetarium So the Anchorage Museum's first Friday. You can explore the galleries, you can create art, and you can visit the planetarium. That's Friday from 6 to 9 p.m. And the 11th Annual Alaska Black Business Expo is happening at the Anchorage Museum Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we have the Anchorage Museum the first Friday, which is happening this Friday. And we have the Alaska Black Business Expo, the 11th Annual Alaska Black Business Expo that is happening tomorrow. And then Super Saturday, kindness cards at the Fairbanks Children's Library. So if you're in Fairbanks, you get to print your own Valentine's Day cards, and that is for regular admission. And that is happening again tomorrow in Fairbanks from 2 to 4. And love is in the air at the Alaska Zoo member event. You can stroll the zoo. There's a Valentine's Day craft in the greenhouse that you can participate in, and that's at the Alaska Zoo on Sunday at from 4 to 6 p.m. So we have tonight we have the Anchorage Museum's first Friday, where you can explore the galleries, create some art of your own. And then tomorrow we have the 11th Annual Alaska Black Business Expo at the Anchorage Museum, and that's from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then we can print kindness cards at the Fairbanks Children's Museum and print your own Valentine's Day cards as well. And that's at the Children's Museum with regular admission. And that's tomorrow from 2 to 4 p.m. So if you're in Fairbanks, you might want to check that out. And the Alaska Zoo member event, you can stroll the zoo and make some Valentine's Day crafts in the greenhouse. And that's Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. So those are some cool events that are happening around Alaska this weekend. So you can also find more information about those online on our website. And that wraps up the Morning Edition Extra for this Friday morning. Thank you so much for joining me and for starting off your morning with Alaska's news source. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you again at noon for the latest in news, weather, and more. Have a good day.